Welcome to Native Honor Hours. This is Ed Zendejas, and Cindy Krafka is not with us today. She fell victim to Fat Tuesday and hasn't recovered, and skipped Ash Wednesday, and I don't even know if she knows what week it is. But hopefully she'll be recovered by next week, and she'll be back. But we have a special guest, started out as a guest, but now she's serving the role as guest host, our very own Dr. Kateri Petto.
Hi, thanks
This
for
is when
having
you
me.
come in and say, yeah.
Well, I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit nervous. I was nervous to be the guest because I felt like those were some big shoes to fill, following Gary Farmer and Lance Morgan. But now
Remember whose show you are on.
no.
There's tens of people out there to be nervous about.
Well, I know, but those are big shoes to fill. So
No, they're not. No, they're not.
all right. Well,
But we're happy, especially Cindy's shoes. Those tobacco stained shoes that she wears. And we're happy that you're here with us. And we have to say we known each other for a while, right?
oh yeah. Since I was like 17, I think.
You started off as one of our students, fresh out of high school almost.
Yep.
And now Kateri has gone on and went to, it was Creighton Pharmacy School, right?
Yes. Yep.
And graduated with her pharmacology, right?
Doctor of Pharmacy, but
Doctor of Pharmacy. Okay. But she's a doctor and and we're grateful that she's here today. We asked her to come on the show because you have been doing some presentations throughout Indian country about the COVID-19 vaccination. Is that right?
yeah, so I've done, I was on the Great Plains Action Society, invited me on to just provide some information about the COVID vaccines and really just an opportunity to connect with the community and provide factual information so that people can, make informed decisions when it comes to their health and really to help encourage to keep our community safe and healthy during this pandemic.
See, and that's why we brought you here, because we know Cindy wouldn't provide any facts. She just makes stuff up. So we thought we'd go to a credible source and bring you on to give us some background about the facts. Actually, we were discussing before this. Cindy actually got the vaccination this morning and is having a few side effects. I think actually it's because of celebration on Fat Tuesday, but she's claiming that it was because of the vaccination. But I need to let people know. I've been telling people that I've received both of the shots, so I'm vaxxed, and the only side effects I had was a sore arm. So I was pretty excited that I avoided what other side effects that you hear about.
Yeah. And I'll be happy to, kind of go into it. Cindy gave me a little bit of a tough job that she called in sick to the show after getting the vaccine, but I'll be happy to kind of clarify, just what to expect after getting the vaccine.
Well, can I ask you some questions about what I've been hearing?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, because I'm sort of representing, some of the things that, people hear, and I thought it would be good to have you on here to address some of those, because I'm not an expert in this. I just, rolled my sleeve up and said, stick me in the arm. And I was happy about it. Because I've actually been blessed not to have gotten the virus. And even though I worked every day of the summer up on the reservation and, was able to, maneuver through that and all the other things that we do and not contract the virus. So I felt pretty blessed about that, but extremely relieved that I was able to get vaccinated. So the things I've heard is people questioning, one, did they do it too quick? did they spend enough time actually studying it and the trials and that kind of thing? Maybe that's the first thing you can address.
Yeah. So, I'm kind of in the same boat. And before I say anything else, I do want to just kind of acknowledge that the COVID-19 pandemic is something that's very serious, and it's hit Indian country very hard. I think the most recent statistic that I read was that 1 in every 375 Native people has passed away from serious illness associated with COVID-19. And I know that there's a lot of people in our community that are, have been impacted by it, whether it's, coming down with that illness themselves or, having to say goodbye to a loved one because of it.
How does that relate to the general population?
So in terms of the general population, I do have the study pulled up on my phone, but I misspoke. It's actually 1 in every 475 Native people. But that's still not great. But to compare that, it's 1 in every 825 white Americans, 1 in every 645 Black Americans, 1 in every 665 Pacific Islanders, and 1 in every 835 Latino Americans. And then 1 in every 1,320 Asian Americans have died from COVID. So that's pretty shocking.
Information as to why the Native population has been hit harder than the other populations?
Yeah, so I would say that a lot of it just comes with lack of access to care. When we look at just kind of how things impact Indian country as a whole, we see more poor outcomes in terms of disease severity associated with COVID-19 in patients that have multiple comorbidities. And so we know that within our Native populations that there's just a lot of health disparities that, that are kind of a pandemic in themselves in terms of what we're seeing in Indian country with diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemias.
And having said that, what is comorbidity?
Sorry, comorbidity.
Remember, you're talking.
I know. Gotta reel it back in. So comorbidity is just like a pre-existing condition. Even things like respiratory illnesses like asthma and COPD are more common among Native people, and not so much more common, but really just the access to care to get those pre-existing conditions under control just isn't there to the degree that it should be. And I think also just in terms of preventing community spread, I know that that's been really challenging for a lot of Native people when, you think how close-knit our communities are, and that's so tied to our culture and our ways of being. But also like lack of housing where you have multiple people and, sharing a living space. It's really hard to social distance in that kind of setting. And then I also think, just number of essential workers that have had to, kind of be on the front lines and working through the pandemic. It's, unfortunate that we've almost sacrificed these people that, are needing to work to make a living to provide for their families. So I think all of those things are factors in why we're seeing such high cases in Indian country. Plus, I think just an overall lack of resources in our communities is definitely contributing to that as well.
All right, so we're in terms of the length of the study. Is it safe? I mean, people.
Yeah, and I know because I was kind of in the same boat. During the month of November, I was working in the ICU as a clinical pharmacist. And so I was there when our cases here in Omaha were kind of at the highest that we had seen in the community. And even seeing that, just knowing that the vaccine was coming out, I was still a little bit skeptical, just knowing how quickly it came out for use. But, once I set aside my fears and kind of put on my, looked at it from like my more clinical pharmacy lens, it's not that they cut any corners with developing the vaccine. That's not the case at all. The process for approving any medication or a vaccine or what have you goes through a really stringent process with the FDA. And so, in terms of, the global pandemic, COVID-19, having such an impact on just globally, all of the resources in the science community were really dedicated to, sorry, but all of the resources in the science community were really
Is
dedicated.
that John?
Oh, it's Lola. She's but all of the resources were dedicated to trying to find some kind of solution to get us out of this pandemic and really kind of stop the spread and help prevent serious illness. So, all of the red tapes that things would normally go through were still there. They still went through the same study protocols and study designs and clinical trials. But it was just expedient or expedited, sorry, just because, they knew that they needed to get this out to the public and they needed to do it, before we started seeing genetic mutations with the virus.
Your fears were alleviated then? You
Oh,
feel like
absolutely. And I think the other thing too is, just spending that month caring for COVID patients in the ICU was really eye-opening to just see how unpredictable the virus is. And I don't say this to scare anybody, but really just to just kind of urge people to be cautious, wear your mask, make sure that you're social distancing, because we'd have patients that were doing perfectly fine that we were, just awaiting to place at a nursing facility, or we're waiting to go home, and just overnight would take a turn for the worse. And there was just no explanation. And even in terms of who we would see with serious illness, you'd have patients that were otherwise very healthy that would come down with a really, serious case of COVID. So I mean, it doesn't, there's no rhyme or reason to it. And it hits everybody differently. But personally, it's just not worth it to take any chances. And I think another thing that really kind of alleviated my doubts in the vaccine was just all of the physicians and residents and people that I really look up to that have a wealth of clinical knowledge were first in line to get the vaccine. So I don't know if that, helps make people feel a little bit better. But I mean, when you have all these doctors and pharmacists with extensive backgrounds and understanding clinical research and trials and the science behind these things, ready to take it themselves, I think that kind of speaks volumes too.
one of the things that bothered me a lot is I hear people say, well, it's a virus that has a death rate of 0.023%. I don't know why we're getting so concerned over it. But my response to that is what you're saying. You just don't know. And as the statistics you pull out about impacting, the Native community, and I know I'm in the vulnerable category about that. So if I was always fearful that if I got it, I thought, who knows what will happen. So I was always very cautious about and concerned about contracting the virus. So but it annoyed me when I heard people say, well, there's nothing to worry about. It's just like the common flu. That annoyed me to no end.
Well, and I think another thing that isn't brought up enough too is for patients that are hospitalized that, have serious illness with COVID, where they require mechanical ventilation and sedation. The 30-day mortality rates for patients after requiring ventilation, that data is not great. But, even for the patients that do survive, we have to really ask ourselves, like, yes, they lived through it. Yes, maybe the statistics for how many people are dying from this don't seem that bad, but what's their quality of life afterwards? Like you have people that were living independently before coming down with COVID who are now having to spend months in, nursing facilities just to regain their strength to be able to walk, or who are now requiring chronic oxygen use. So, I mean, yeah, maybe they didn't die, but what's that quality of life? So I don't know.
Well, another question that I have that I hear people, they want to know what's in it. Are they putting in some, something that's going to a poison, or that's going to ordinarily would be considered, did they put stuff in there that makes it so that it speeds up the process? So I've heard a lot of concern about people don't know what's in it, and is it going to mess with me long term?
Yeah, so that's another great question. And I think just in terms of all vaccines, people are pretty skeptical about that. But for the two vaccines that are out and available, the Pfizer and Moderna, these are both mRNA vaccines. And I don't know if you've heard, but you probably have, they require some pretty crazy storage conditions, like needing like deep cold freezer, like -40 degrees for the Pfizer vaccine. And so
They could have kept it in my garage this weekend.
probably could have, but yeah, I mean, the reason for that is there's really not a lot of extra ingredients. And so, to keep the product stable, to ensure that by the time it goes from the manufacturer to the facility, once it's reconstituted or, drawn up and ready to go to be given to a patient, there's just not a lot of preservatives. And I think that that's what has really kind of thrown people off in the past about various vaccines, is just looking at the preservatives and the ingredient list. Some of those ingredients that you can read off seem a little bit scary, but I would say for these vaccines, they even showed us the ingredient list when I went and got my first shot. And I mean, there were maybe like 4 compounds listed, and which I think for a vaccine is pretty significant. I didn't really feel too scared to get it. I don't have them, readily available. I could look that up if you'd like, but yeah.
I just want to make sure that there's nothing like arsenic or.
No. And the other thing too is, I mean, I don't mean to say like injecting yourself with arsenic is safe, but I mean, our bodies are so sophisticated in the way that we process toxins and chemicals that we're putting in. And I mean, if you look at the ingredients in your food, I don't think that you have much room to talk about being scared about these vaccines. So.
All right. Well, the other thing you mentioned, you talked about Pfizer and Moderna. Those are the 2 vaccines that have been approved so far. Can you speak to any difference between the 2? Is one better than the other, or one preferable to the other? Because I've heard people say, well, I'm going to wait till I get the other one. I want my position was, whatever one becomes available first, go ahead and give that one to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now there are 2 vaccines that we are currently administering to the public, the Pfizer and the Moderna. So both of them have very similar efficacy. They're both about 95% effective at preventing an infection with COVID-19. So that's really, really good. And that's just coming off of the initial clinical trials that we have available for them. Like I said, they're still kind of studying that to see in terms of how long that protection lasts. But overall, what we're seeing with these vaccines is just really promising and very exciting. There is another vaccine that is currently being studied that they do anticipate coming out soon, and that one is by Johnson & Johnson. And it's a little bit different in terms of how it works in the body. So like I said, Pfizer and Moderna are mRNA vaccines, whereas this Johnson & Johnson one uses a human adenovirus. It's adenovirus serotype 26, if that means anything to anybody. Probably not. It really means anything to me. But that's kind of used as the vector to deliver the like, I guess, proteins that provide that protection against COVID-19. Now with that vaccine, granted, there is such a huge push to get as many people in our country immunized and protected against COVID. And so I anticipate that they're going to try to push that one out just so that they can, have more product available to get more people protected. But what is important to know is so far the clinical trials for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is that it is 66% effective at preventing infection. So 95% effective with the Pfizer and the Moderna versus 66 with the Johnson and Johnson.
You can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard whereas Moderna and Pfizer require 2 shots, that Johnson and Johnson only requires 1 shot.
Yes, and that is correct. So yeah, so as it is now, the Moderna and Pfizer. So for Pfizer, you go in, you get your first shot, and then the second dose is 21 days later. And then for the Moderna vaccine, it's 28 days after the initial shot. But yes, the Johnson and Johnson is just a single dose. So from that aspect, that's great. But in terms of the efficacy, it's just a little bit lower than
That's
the other 2 options. A lot lower, yeah. They did study, so really it kind of comes down to the study outcomes that they were looking at. So I said it was 66% effective at preventing an infection with COVID-19. But it is 85% effective at preventing a serious infection. So like severe illness, meaning like hospitalization, kind of the respiratory problems that we kind of associate with the disease. So I'd say it's better than nothing. So if you, I guess on that note, I would really urge people, if you are planning on getting the vaccine, I know a lot of people are saying, well, I just want to wait and see, make sure it's safe first, which I understand because it is a little bit scary.
Well, that was actually my next question. I've heard people say, well, I'm just going to wait because essentially, people at work were saying, I'm going to wait and see if you die. I said, so people are a bit anxious about, I guess, side effects and long-term maybe effects that may result of the virus. So that's another concern I've heard people have, is that, I'm just going to wait and see what happens. If people start dropping, then I'm not going to take it.
Yeah, so that's a good point. But I guess on that note, I would say wouldn't wait, just because you don't know what vaccine is going to be available to you if you wait too long. Also, just the amount of variant strains that we're starting to see. Like the emerging variant from the UK, there was one in South Africa. It's really, really recommended to get the vaccine as soon as you can, because the sooner that we get everyone immunized, the more we decrease the community spread. And the sooner we do that, the less likely we are to see more variants that we could potentially not have anything to combat. But yeah, so I guess also going back to people just being fearful about different reactions to it. I actually looked up to see what, I guess in terms of serious reactions, really the only thing that is serious would be like an anaphylactic reaction. And I believe like the statistic is it's like a 1 in a million chance of having an anaphylactic reaction to either vaccine.
What kind of reaction?
Anaphylactic. So when I say anaphylactic, that means would require like having an EpiPen. So when we see people have what I said, an anaphylactic reaction, it would be like a drop in your blood pressure, closing of your airway. But really, there's a very slim chance of that. You have an even greater chance of contracting COVID and having serious long-term effects from that than you probably do from these vaccines. And so when you go in to get the vaccine, which you can probably speak to this, they do observe you for 15 minutes following the shot. And that's, again, just to make sure that, you're not having any issues with your airway.
They gave us snacks.
They gave you snacks. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, when I got my first shot, it was right before Christmas, and I came out of the room, and there are all these healthcare workers sitting in the observation area, and Joy to the World was playing, and it was a moment, because I think we're all just, especially in healthcare, kind of exhausted, and yeah. But
well, having said that, another issue that I've heard people say is the side effects.
Yeah. So
which
side
Cindy
effects,
is dealing with now, allegedly.
So side effects are pretty, I would say it's pretty well tolerated. I was in the same boat as you, luckily, where I just had a sore arm, maybe had a little bit of a headache, but it's hard to say if I just had a headache normally and just thought it was from the vaccine, or it could have been in between my ears. I don't know.
They told me that I'd be a little bit more lethargic, and I said I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Generally lethargic anyway.
Yeah. So I would say that is probably the biggest side effect, would just be like some fatigue, some pain at, the injection site. Some
And I will be upfront honest, that hurt.
Yeah.
Pain in your arm. It's like someone gave you a knuckle punch.
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 of them.
Yeah, I grew up with 4 brothers, and I felt like I was like a kid again.
The shot itself was really nothing. I'm afraid of needles. And, I didn't even know that they shot me. And it wasn't until they said, all right, you can put your sleeve down. That, are you done? I hardly even felt it.
Yeah. And I was the exact same. Right after the nurse was done, I was like, did you give it yet? And she was like, yeah, you're all done. And I would say probably about 6 hours after I got my first dose was when I really started to notice that I was having some arm pain. And then it kind of bothered me throughout the night while I was sleeping, just a little bit uncomfortable. If you've gotten a tetanus shot recently, I would say it's probably about the same pain as that, or just feels like you got slugged in the arm pretty hard. But then the next day, it kind of went away. And then the second dose, I barely had any arm pain. So I was pretty lucky. I did have one of my co-residents, when she got her second dose, she actually kind of had some like body aches and chills and had a low grade fever. And so that's pretty normal. I would just, want people to know that if you do experience that, that just means that your immune system is, doing its thing. It's, kind of processing the vaccine, and kind of making sure that your body has that immune response. So then when you do come in contact with the real COVID virus, it'll be able to stop it before it's able to prevent a serious infection.
I told Cindy because all that nicotine that's in her body.
No comment.
But there's some truth to that. No comment, huh? Well, Cindy, it's time for you to quit smoking. So I guess the final question is, as final as I can get, I'll probably think of more, but do you recommend getting the vaccination?
Absolutely. That is like, I feel like I've been sitting on my soapbox since December, because I don't know, it's a little bit discouraging, the number of people that are anti-vaccine. And I get it. I would probably kind of be sitting in the same boat if I hadn't gone to pharmacy school. But again, just understanding the clinical trials and the evidence that goes into the creation of these vaccines, and really the close monitoring and the science behind them. They're very sophisticated. And, I wasn't around during polio, but I, have some professors where, they were impacted by that, and have expressed their frustration towards like my generation, where, we didn't live through something that impacted people in that way because of science and these vaccines. And I understand too, to a certain degree, that there is a lot of distrust, especially from certain minority communities at, our healthcare system. I 100% get that. But that's why, I feel like it's important to, to kind of provide that factual education to our community, so that, again, you're able to make an informed decision when it comes to your health.
Well, I'm glad you're here, because this has been a major concern of mine since this pandemic. I can't tell you how concerned I was, not just for myself, but other people, especially Native people, about the impact. And I think it's shown that it has been, your statistics show that it's been, has a detrimental impact, especially in our Native community. And I'm just really grateful that I was able to get vaccinated. I don't profess that, that I'm gonna walk around and do things I did before, because I still, do the distancing. I still wear the mask when I go into work. I do all of that stuff, because you just never know what new variants and everything else. I don't want to take any chances, but I felt like this was an important show to get someone like you, who's got the the credentials in our Native community, to let our people know that this is a good thing to do. And I don't want to. It's one thing for me and Cindy to get up and start running our mouths about this stuff, but wanted to have somebody in here that had the background and the training and the experience to let our community members know that this is a good thing to do. So I'm glad that you're able to come on.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you having me and letting me, kind of use your platform to provide this information for people, because it is a really big deal. And just, again, just knowing firsthand how hard this has hit our community, just, it hits close to home. And I don't want to come off as, discrediting anyone for their decisions that they make. If you don't trust the vaccine, I get that, but from my standpoint, I just want to make sure that I'm providing you with the facts and the information so that, again, you can make a good decision. I'm not going to say the right decision, even though kind of I feel very strongly about it. But this was kind of a line that I took from our buddy Echo Hawk. A long time ago when I was talking with him, he has that background in public health, and something that he shared with me that I kind of hung on to, because I love it. But traditional medicine definitely has its place, and hanging on to those cultural values is of the utmost importance. But these modern diseases, it's okay for us to lean on modern medicine to again help keep our communities safe and healthy, especially, seeing how much COVID-19 has decimated Native communities. We really are at war with it in terms of protecting our elders and making sure that we're able to preserve our culture. So, from that standpoint, I really also encourage people to not only get the vaccine, but again, just continue to follow those safety precautions. And I have one more thing I wanted to add with that is, just because you get the vaccine, that doesn't mean that the world just goes back to normal. We're still in this for the long haul. And so it's important to, again, social distance, wear your mask. I'm fully immunized, but I still practice those precautions when I go and visit my 90-year-old grandmother. And arguably, I probably shouldn't be going over there at all, but just keeping in mind that even though I've gotten both doses, I still could be a carrier, and I still could be passing that on to other people. But the masks do work. Like you said earlier at the beginning of the show, you've been working throughout the summer. I've been working in a hospital exposed to COVID patients, and also working in close proximity with other healthcare professionals. But the thing is we all were wearing our masks, and that really does a great job at, it's kind of our best defense. And having that plus the vaccines, it's a glimmer of hope. So.
Plus that you don't have to worry about all the grease on your face. It just covers it right up.
Oh yeah, oh my gosh, I love wearing a mask, especially me. I'm like a chronic mouth breather, so I don't look so dumb now. It covers my mouth.
Hey, Kenny, do we have any questions out there?
I don't see any questions. There were just a lot of shout outs from Barry, Cindy, Cynthia, and everybody promoting that we should be getting vaccines.
All right, well.
I love it, yes.
Well, do you have any, you said you wanted to nominate a Knucklehead of the Week.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Besides Cindy.
Oh
That's my knucklehead, Cindy.
She's exempt. She got her vaccine. We can't.
I thought we would name.
That's
I thought we
fair.
would name it after her.
No, never, never.
Well, who do you want to nominate? I'll do this.
My Knucklehead of the Week nomination goes to Senator Ted Cruz. He's been all over the news today. So Texas, as I'm sure you guys are all aware, has been going through some problems with the electrical grid, pipes freezing, food shortages. They're just kind of in a bad state right now, in addition to, all the problems surrounding COVID-19. But their lovely representative fled the country to Cancun with his family while his constituents are cold and hungry and
I
dealing
want to know,
with
I want to know if he
crisis.
climbed that wall to get there.
Yeah, I saw a post and it was like, well, if only they would have spent their resources expanding their power grid and not building a wall, maybe. I don't know.
All right, well, we'll let, usually I refrain Cindy from getting into politics, but I'll give it to you since you're filling in for her today. I actually have an Indian of the Week. His name is Aaron Yazzie. Does that name sound familiar? He worked
No.
at NASA.
Oh,
They're doing that Martian, the thing that rover landed on Mars. And he was an engineer for NASA that helped work on that rover. How often does that happen? That's like native people in engineering. That's pretty rare. And
yeah,
to have his work being done to help land something on Mars,
that's cool.
that's pretty
Yeah,
amazing if you ask me. So
yeah,
his name is Aaron Yazzie. We'll give him a little shout out for being Native Indian of the Week.
yeah. We need more natives in like the STEM fields. Not to, I know you're a big law person and want everyone to go to law school, but
No, no,
I'm
no,
over
no.
here rooting for science.
You should know. You should know better than that. I don't. It's not.
Sorry.
Not that I am pushing everybody to go there. It's if definitely if you have a talent with medicine or with numbers or like being an engineer, then great, do that. I'm talking to students, sort of like me and my daughters who majored in things that maybe you can't get a job with. Law school is a good alternative to be able to do something that could feed your family and
And do some good.
term. So I'm not telling everybody, oh, you should go, Kateri.
I'm totally teasing. I'm teasing completely.
No, I just want to make sure. It's not like I tell if you have skills, with engineering, science, medicine, certainly run with it and do the most you can with it. Have nothing but encouragement for that. If you're like me and basically have no marketable skills, law school is a good option.
No marketable skill. I don't believe that for a second.
All right, well, we're glad that you're able to come and that we have a resource like you in the community now. That's always a good thing, and you also do other advocacy besides health stuff. You're leading marches and getting in front of the camera. You're doing all kinds. I don't know why you were nervous about doing this. This is nothing compared to about last summer.
Believe it or not, for as much as I talk, public speaking is just, it's scary. Like I struggle with it, but and I don't like being, as much as it seems, especially this past summer with the whole Bear Hills March. I don't necessarily like being like front and center. But I'm also not afraid to stand up if we need somebody to. So because a lot of these causes, they're very near and dear to my heart, and I want to help out and have a positive impact where I can. So
Well, we'll see you running big health organizations and doing all kinds of great things in the future.
yeah, well, here's my plug. I am looking for a job. I finished my residency in July 2nd. So just if anybody's out there watching us, just
Any of you tribal leaders or people in charge of healthcare, got one of our own. We always hear oh, we want you to go out and get an education so you can help your people. And when the time comes, they should act on it. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I got student loans and no, no, but that's.
See, that's another thing. People like, oh, she got that college for free. Oh, she got to do all this stuff. No, you have to take out loans, even though we may get some scholarships along the way, but certainly nothing that's gonna, make us rich while we're going to school, and we have to take loans. So
Yeah.
you got to be able to pay those student loans back. Yeah. Well, Kateri, Dr. Is it Hinman Petto, or just what do? You hyphenated? Or are you doing?
So legally, I'm Kateri Petto, but I like to give my family some credit. So I've been going by Hinman Petto.
Dr. Kateri.
Yeah.
Well, we're happy that you're able to come in today, and like I said, we're glad that we have a resource that we can, within our community, that was homegrown, that we can call upon. And I just urge you, if you have any doubts, is there some kind of website that we can refer people to, or have any questions? Or
yeah, so I would say go to the CDC. That's another whole other thing I could talk about for another hour. But just making sure that the information that you're getting is coming from a reliable source. That is so huge right now. But I would say really
instead of a meme on Facebook.
You would be surprised. But yeah, I mean, but yeah, the CDC website, they have a lot of really good information. And I would say it's easy to follow, easy to understand. And then also just reaching out to your local healthcare professionals. I'm going to put a plug in for pharmacy. Your local community pharmacist, they're getting all ready to go to, be part of this mass immunization process. And so part of our training in pharmacy school is really understanding all of the various immunizations. We're also certified to administer vaccines. So, I would encourage you that, next time you're at your local Walgreens or Hy-Vee, if you have any questions or, need some clarification, ask to speak with your pharmacist. That's what they're there for. And certainly if you have any questions, I'm on Facebook. So certainly reach out to me too. I'm happy to help or provide any information too.
Well, great. Kenny, any final questions, anything to wrap up with?
No, I think we're good.
We're good. All right. Once again, thanks, Kateri and Cindy. If you're listening, what kind of advice would you give or drug for hangover? For Cindy.
First,
because that's what it is.
I would say I would go with first medicine, which is water. Maybe some hangover soup. I don't know.
All right. Well, we wish her well in recovering from her vaccination ailments. But have to let you know, don't let that discourage you, because Cindy, she comes with all kinds of baggage. No, get well, Cindy. We'll see you next week. Once again, thanks for coming, Dr. Petto. And
yeah, thank you for having me. And I just want to say too, it's very humbling to be in this position where, people are running to me to trust the information that I'm giving them. So I just want to say again, thank you.
Well, you're definitely welcome, and we're grateful to have you amongst us in our community now. All right, and give your husband my best. Did you get the dog restrained?
Yeah, I don't know. He might have flicked him something, because they've been pretty quiet.
All right. Well, we'll see you. Thanks for coming, Kateri.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Kenny, take us out.